Hello everyone, my name is FIKO Franko and I'm here going to review a paper with the title is Study Abroad's Contribution to Critical Thinking and World Citizenship by Minh Nguyen. So this paper is mainly talks about critical thinking and creative thinking. They both cannot be separated, so they explain why critical thinking and creative thinking is important when you're studying abroad and it's used. So this paper articulates and defends studies due to Richard Paul and Linda Elder. First, creative thought and critical thought cannot be separated. Second, the intellectual traits constitutive of critical thinking are interdependent. The twin these combined with certain specific studies show that study abroad enhance both creativity and criticality. So, creativity and critical thinking is going to is important when you're studying abroad. The study this, the twin these combined with certain impact studies show that study abroad enhance both creativity and criticality. The primary value of such gain resides in their potential to realize not only Socratic ideal of rationality but also the diagenin of cosmopolitanism, and the former consists in the cultivation of environment, creative and critical individual societies, whereas the latter consists of the cultivation of citizen of the world and single communities to which they belong. Since study abroad can lead to intellectual growth and participant. So when you're studying abroad, you are going to grow your creative thinking, critical thinking, because you are going, which I'm going to be explaining later. Benefit of study abroad. Study abroad is typically described as life-changing, a defining moment, or so participants say. Study abroad help shape a participant's life for years after the experience. Study abroad is a valuable experience for those who have experienced them. In 2002, the Institute of the International Education of Students (IES) conducted the largest survey of study abroad alumni ever. The IES Abroad 50-year Alumni Survey confirms the long-term impact of study abroad on the participants' personal, academic, and professional life. When asked about personal development, 96% said study abroad increased their self-confidence, 97% said it enhanced their maturity, 89% said it empowered them to tolerate ambiguity, and 84% said it caused them to modify their social political position. Studying abroad, as a research say, it can improve your self-confidence, maturity. Why? Because when studying abroad, you are going to meet a lot of new person you may never met. You are going to adapt to a new environment. So self-confidence is really needed when you are studying abroad. You are going to need to talk to a lot of people to get information. You maybe not know anyone, but you are need to know people in the area. When questioned about intercultural development, 98% said study abroad expanded their understanding of their own cultural values and biases. 82% said it helped them to develop a more refined way of looking at the world. 90% said it inspired them to cultivate a more diverse circle of friends, and 64% said it encouraged them to explore other cultures. So not only studying abroad increases self-confidence, maturity, and else, it also makes you study more about a country's culture or their cultures. Because when you are adapting to a new environment, you are going to learn the culture. You may meet their culture. What are they doing in everyday life, or what's your friend's culture? You need to adapt. You need to respect them. When queried about academic commitment, 80% said study abroad raised their interest in academic study. 86% said it strengthened their commitment to foreign language study. 87% said it helped shape their subsequent educational experience, and 64% said it influenced their decision to attend graduate school. So, studying abroad is not only about um, self confidence and cultural, it's also your academic. You, you are going to learn more a lot about language culture because for example when you are in studying abroad in UK or in America you are you are expected to use English in your daily life unlike your native language. Beyond the cultural and linguistic benefits, how reliable are the self-report data? Given the temptation of report good behavior and report bad behavior, could a high percentage of survey respondents who claim they have been positively transformed by their study abroad experience be an artifact associated by. While such a possibility cannot be ruled out, its actually is yet to be established. Besides, a number of studies exist that employ objective measurement tools such as the pretest and post-test specific skills and confirm the advantage of study abroad beyond the cultural and linguistic benefits. So there are lots of benefits you can get from studying abroad. Not only it's beyond. It's not only cultures and linguistics. There are lots, but cultural and linguistic are going to improve a lot when you're studying abroad. The inseparability of creativity and theatricality. So, what I've said before in the introduction, this paper talks a lot about creative thinking and critical thinking because you are going to use it a lot when you are studying abroad. Study abroad promotes the development of not only creative thinking but also critical thinking for two reasons. First, according to the commonly accepted model of critical thinking developed by Richard Paul and Linda Elder, creative thinking and critical are so interwoven that neither can be separated from the other without an essential loss to both. Second, in line with the Paul Elder model, certain traits of mind and growth, of several of which study abroad has been shown to advance considered critical thinking, and the traits are interdependent such that the acquisition, possession, retention, employment, development, and enrichment of one requires the same of the others, and our critical thinking will be compromised if we severely lacking in any of these traits. So, acquisition, possession, retention, employment, development, and enrichment are important to improve our critical thinking. If one of them are not exist, it could disturb your critical thinking process. Because of the inseparability of the creative thought and critical thought, as well as the interdependence of intellectual traits constitutive of critical thinking, to the extent that study abroad promotes the development of the creative thinking and cognitive traits such as intellectual humility and intellectual empathy, study abroad promotes the development of critical thinking. So study abroad, it really improves your critical thinking a lot. It helps you to develop your critical thinking. Consider the inseparability of creativity and critical thinking. Whether creative or critical is a cognitive achievement, something which the mind must work to attain. Creative thinking involves a process of making or constructing, whereas critical thinking involves a process of judging or assessing. So, a creative thinking mainly used when you are going to making or constructing ideas, and critical thinking involved in the process of judging. So, when you are thinking, when you are going to make some new idea, you are going to use your creative thinking, and when you are going to say it, going to do it, you really need your critical thinking. Am I doing the right thing or am I doing the wrong thing? So these two things are intertwined and cannot be separated. Some may oppose the inseparability thesis because it fails to delineate important distinction and ultimately conflates two different ways of thinking. Opponents may invoke the following passage to justify their stand. Whereas creative thinking is divergent, critical thinking is convergent. Where creative thinking tries to create something new, creative thinking seeks to assess reality or validity in something that exists. Where creative thinking is carried on by violating accepted principles, critical thinking is carried on by applying accepted principles. Although creative and critical thinking may very well be different sides of the same coin, they are not identical. There are three reasons for rejecting this critique, what I've said before. Firstly, is the maintain its inseparability. Thesis is not to identify creativity with critically. Inseparability is not identity. That Helen of Troy is inseparable from a law of Paris does not mean that they are identical. Secondly, the objections assume that their critical thinking or critical distinction maps neatly onto the divergent or convergent distinction, but this assumption is tendencies. Logicians and mathematicians and scientists can engage in convergent thinking by attempting to solve problems with one and only one solution, and do so in a creative manner. The interdependence of intellectual traits. Howell and Elder conceive of critical thinking as the art of analyzing and evaluating thinking with a view to improving it. To establish interdependence thesis, consider intellectual humility. According to Paul and Elder model, the traits characteristically present in critical thinkers include intellectual humility, intellectual courage, intellectual empathy, intellectual perseverance, intellectual integrity, intellectual autonomy, confidence in reason, and fair-mindedness. These things exist when in the critical thinkers. To establish the independence, consider intellectual humility. Intellectual humility consists in the Socratic knowledge of one's own ignorance to realize what we know and what we don't know. We need both intellectual integrity and intellectual courage. So for intellectual humility, you need both intellectual integrity and courage when you are, because humility is to realize what we know and what we don't know. That's intellectual humility, and intellectual integrity enables us to be true to our own thinking and recognize the limits of our knowledge. Intellectual integrity is the limitation of our brain and to recognize our own strengths of thinking so we know our limits. Whereas intellectual courage enables us to squarely face our own bias, prejudice, and whatever else is responsible for our own cognitive shortcomings. For intellectual courage, it's about your courage when you are facing your prejudice, your own bias. Intellectual integrity and intellectual courage in turn require intellectual autonomy and intellectual empathy, respectively. The cultivation of critical thinking. Study approach spurs the growth of several intellectual traits. Recall the IES survey. Firstly, 88% said study abroad expanded their understanding of their own cultural biases, and 92% said it helped them to develop a more sophisticated way of looking at the world. Secondly, 84% said it caused them to modify their socio-political position, and 64% said it encouraged them to explore other cultures. So, the result of the research said the study abroad and expanded their understanding of their own cultural biases, so they understand what is my culture. They understand their own culture. And 82% it helped to develop a more sophisticated way of looking at the world. They see the world in a larger point of view. They see the world in maybe and a larger point of view, so it can. And 80 said 99% said empowered them to tolerate ambiguity, and 90% said it inspired them to cultivate a more diverse circle of friends. So when you're studying abroad, you're going to meet a lot of new friends from a different culture. So you are going to learn their cultures, of course. Socrates. Few modest proposals. I would like to conclude with three schematic proposals for ensuring intellectual growth and study abroad students. First, study abroad is while not inexpensive, foster the development of informed, critical, and creative thinkers who communicate effectively. To borrow a signature phrase from we all know that studying abroad is not cheap. It's an expensive things, but there are lots of options you can take for like a scholarship. There are lots of scholarships that offers studying abroad programs. So getting one is really important to improve our critical thinking and creative thinking. Since such development is crucial at all levels of education, subject to relevant budgetary constraints, study abroad ought to be part of any significant institutional effort to promote critical and creative thinking. Second, considering adaptation is the critical mechanism that underlies the robust correlation between living overseas and enhanced creativity. Study abroad programs ought to be structured in such a way as to encourage participants' change of adapting to the host country's culture. So you are going to adapt to a new culture, a new environment when you need to adapt when you are studying abroad, because if you are not adapting, you may be so fast ignorant to the outside world, and you will miss a lot of information. Maybe you may getting no friends in there because you are not adapting. You need to adapt when you are studying abroad. If participants form a harmonic community in which they live and interact harmoniously with others from their own culture, they may fail to take full advantage of the opportunity to improve their creativity and thus critical thinking. You need to interact with your friends, with people in the country when you are studying abroad. It is important for you. Conversely, host institutions ought to make every effort to help visiting international students, scholars, and their families to adapt to local culture, so they all stand to gain from enhanced creativity and criticality. Third, in a recent study, Joshua S. McCombs observed, no president, provost, dean, or study abroad director will discourage the expansion of studying abroad or his campus, most actively encouraging it. Yet the kinds of inquiry and assessment that typically accompany first-year program, academic curricula, living learning communities, and other programs have largely been absent of study abroad. Many universities support the programs of studying abroad, especially not only not only not only studying abroad in your own country, but also in going to another country, a foreign country, where you are going to learn a lot. Uh, to rectify this situation, there are to be consulted institutional effort to initiate and pursue similar kinds of inquiry and assessment for study abroad. So to close my reviews about this paper, this paper talk mostly about how critical thinking and creative thinking is connected, and how they can improve, and how study abroad can improve it, and why study abroad is important. It's really has a lot of benefit you can get from studying abroad. Critical thinking and creative thinking is will going to develop a lot when you are studying abroad. So that's the end of my review. Thank you so much for listening. Maybe I hope. Thank you.